just like on our trips, we like to start things in a timely fashion. So let's get going. A couple of words about Wheel and Anchor for those of you who are new. Perhaps you're joining our webinar for the first time. And if you're not, if you've tuned into the webinar every week on a regular basis, you can take 2 minutes and grab a coffee while I'm explaining what Wheel and Anchor is all about. And let me put it this way. So I've been organizing travel for Canadians all around the world for the better part of 30 years, more than 30 years. I know I don't look that old, but the theme that I found is that, I organized trips for a lot of other travel agencies in the past and tour operators from different parts of Canada. And, when a bunch of people get together that really sort of sync in the way that they like to explore the world and they like to connect with people, you just have a totally different vibe than if you sign up for a group trip with a big company and you're just another name on the list. And so we are really all about community. And when a group of friends get together, just like if you are a member of a golf club or a tennis club or a ski club or something like that, there is a different feeling in how you go about each day and how you relate to one another. And that's exactly how we are at Wheel and Anchor. And, this is now our second LiveAway of 2023 here in Bali. We had one last month in Koh Samui, Thailand, that just ended just under a week ago. And, it's very warming for me, the feeling of people getting to know each other, sharing the experiences they're having on a day-to-day experience, talking about the future, not just of travel, but just in general. And that is really what we're all about, is bringing people together for these experiences that we are curating in different parts of the world. And so that's kind of the vision, the motivation behind Wheel and Anchor. So I'm going to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me already, my name is Gordon. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. As I say, I've been working in and around travel for more than 30 years. We couldn't do all these great programs without the assistance of a much bigger team than those that you see here. But Paula and Barb, who you see on the screen, are trip specialists who are there to help you answer all your questions about the trips that we have and where we're going, and hopefully inspire you to some of the places that we're going. And so today I'm going to take you, our members, our fellow members from Wheel and Anchor that are interested in this idea of liveaways. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, about getting away for the winter and going someplace a little bit different. Canadians, snowbirds, often heading down south to Florida or Arizona or Mexico or the Caribbean, or what have you. And more people are thinking there's got to be more out there. And that's why a lot of people have joined us in Thailand last month in January and early February, and now here in Bali, and of course in our Mediterranean destinations. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into what you can find down here in Bali, Indonesia. And that's where we're going to be heading again, of course, in February and March of next year. Let me say a few words about the concept of our liveaways. And so this idea was kind of born, again, through 3 decades that I've spent in travel. And I've really come to understand what people appreciate and how they like to travel. And particularly during the COVID era, we were stuck at home for a long time. And I think people were coming out of it in particular thinking, well, if I'm going to be traveling all over the world, maybe I want to be getting on and off airplanes less often, with all the risks that are associated with that, perhaps less so now. But even then, airfares are volatile, and the whole experience of air travel is, let's face it, it isn't fun. It's as least fun as it's been since it was invented, I think. And so if you're going to go away, why not, go away for a longer period of time? And get to know a place. And not just, some people say, well, just like long stay holidays that other companies offer in the south of Spain or Portugal. And, they put you up in these big giant hotels that are empty in the winter because of course there's nobody going there. But my philosophy is that, and our philosophy at Wheel and Anchor is, there is so much more that you can do. You want to have an experience that is curated, but at the same time, you want to have the ability to explore on your own. And, but at the same time, know that you've got a wonderful place to stay. You've got a group of people that you can always go back to and hang out in the afternoon or the evening and, play cards or go for dinner or, so it's like that feeling of being in someplace familiar, again, for traditional snowbirds, like going to places like Florida or Arizona, but in a more exotic destination and having all of the learnings and so on that go with travel further abroad. On top of that, we've revised our concept for our LiveAways looking forward to next year, in that at first we thought, okay, well, go and spend a month in a place, which is still a very valid idea. And again, we had the better part of 50 members that came with us. We had a grand time in Thailand, in Koh Samui, for a month. But a lot of people are also like, well, I like the idea of a longer stay, but maybe I want to go to 2 places or 3 places over the course of the winter. And so we've modified our concept a little bit for 2024. We've now separated into 2-week blocks. So you can go for 2 weeks, you can go for a month, you can go for 6 weeks, by combining one LiveAway destination with another, or simply staying longer. I mean, so you still have the ability to go to any of our destinations for 4 weeks. And obviously, because of the arrangements we have with the hotels and the apartment hotels that we use, we obviously have, it's a little bit more cost effective to go to one place for a month, but at the same time, flexibility, being able to combine one with the other, that is, I think, unique in our LiveAway concept. So looking at 2024, talking about Bali, you could spend 2 weeks in Thailand, or a month in Thailand, 2 weeks in Bali. We have a number of people with me here on this trip in Bali that spent a month in Koh Samui, came here for 2 weeks. Some of them are here for a month, or going away basically for the whole winter. Other people are spending a couple of weeks here and continuing on with us to New Zealand for our LiveAway program there. So the ability to mix and match is quite a unique approach, and we want you to have the ability to choose and still be away for a longer time. So anyway, let's move on from that and talk about our program here in Bali, Indonesia. And Bali is a place that's it's one of those exotic places in the world that, we know a little bit about. Maybe we've seen some articles in National Geographic or something. But at the same time, it's hard to understand exactly what it's all about. And so just to give you a little bit of a geographic perspective, particularly if you're a map buff like I am, Bali is one of the islands in this vast archipelago of Indonesia. So if you take the global map here and you look at sort of Indonesia, you've got Borneo up here in the top. I'm looking now at the inset map at the bottom right, and nestled in between Java Island and Lombok and the Komodo Islands, you find this it's not that little, island of Bali. And, there's a lot to Bali. And then this is an important point as well, because for most people, Bali, as you may know, is a very popular destination among Australian tourists. They come here in July and August, which is the peak season in Bali, because of course it's winter in Australia. And most of them hang out right down here in the southern tip of the island, here in this area called Nusa Dua, Kuta, Seminyak, and so on. And so it's actually, this is a very densely populated part of the island, Denpasar, the capital, right? DPS, the airport code. This area of Bali is very, very busy. It offers a lot. It's a busy part of the island, but of course you've got the whole rest of the island that is sort of there for your exploration. Ubud, the cultural capital, Mount Agung, which is the highest mountain, a volcano. As you know, it It erupted a number of years ago. Actually, it didn't erupt a number of years ago. It almost erupted. The last time was actually about 40 years ago that the volcanoes here in Bali erupted, Mount Batur, and then further up on the north coast where we have an overnight trip. And so although it's a small island, it's not that small. So to get from one side to the other is several hours of driving. And we are basing our program here, down here on the east coast of the island in a little place called Sanur, which is call it a suburb, if you will, of Denpasar. And I'll tell you, I had been to Bali before, obviously, before this LiveAway now, but I'd spent time in more of the traditional tourist areas like Kuta and Seminyak and Canggu, which are down here on the southwestern coast. But I'll tell you, this area of Sanur is absolutely magical. And I'll show you the hotel in a minute, but the street is full of shops and spas and massage places and bars and restaurants, live entertainment within literally a few minutes walk. I think there's 4 places where they've got live entertainment going on. There's a boardwalk all the way down the beach, 7 kilometers long. It is a really idyllic place, a great place to spend a prolonged period of time, 2 weeks or a month. And from this base in Sanur, because we are off this tourist hub down in the it's still a very touristy area, don't get me wrong, but we can reach Ubud in roughly an hour. We can reach Kintamani. We can get over to Seminyak in about an hour. So we're relatively centrally located, and at the same time, not so far into the dense part of the very south of the island that I think this is actually the perfect place to be. And so from here, we also have our overnight excursions to the Komodo Islands, where we have to fly to, which is, of course, over here, another set of islands in the Indonesian archipelago. We have trips up to the Gili Islands as well, as you can see here, as well as over to Bali's sister island, Nusa Penida. And so all of these things are available more or less from our doorstep. So that just gives you a little bit of the geographic overview. Let me talk a little bit about where we're staying. In fact, this is the hotel that I'm in right now. This is you can see here behind me, this is one of the rooms in this lovely, lovely beachfront hotel that we were able to secure some rooms in for this year and next. And this is the actual pool, which is beachfront, a lovely east-facing beach, which has got a coral reef that's just out here. So the waters are relatively calm, sandy. It's a lovely place to go for a swim. And as I say, that boardwalk runs right along in front of the hotel. And this is the thing that our members are particularly enjoying, is the fact that you can stroll down for 7 kilometers, so a few kilometers in either direction, and enjoy the beach and enjoy all of the other restaurants and bars and hotels that are sort of along the way. It's a great location. So the hotel itself has a number of different room categories. It's kind of a long and narrow strip, very quiet here, beautifully designed. It has obviously an on-site spa, a breakfast, a wonderful buffet breakfast is served here every day. And again, this is like the room that I'm literally sitting in now. You can see the picture on the wall behind me. This is the accommodations, and I must say, I had not been here. One of our team had selected this hotel when we were putting this program together a year ago, and I am really, really pleased and enthused by the quality of the design, the decor in the rooms. Like you feel like you could stay here forever, never mind for only a few weeks. So the rooms have different configurations. Some of them have a balcony, like this one that you see in the photograph here. You look out over sort of green jungles. It's very quiet. Some of them have a direct access to the pool, the so-called heavenly pool suites. And then there's a few rooms that have their own private plunge pool, like you can see in this photograph here. So depending on what you like, I think this hotel has it all. It's large enough to have different room categories, but at the same time, small enough to give you a bit of an intimate feel, and perfectly located in the middle of Sanur and all of the the activities and attractions that are in the immediate area. So there's no shortage of things to do. What happens on a typical day on our LiveAway? Well, we give you a whole assortment of excursions that we've organized, that we've curated ourselves with our local partners. But at the same time, the average person is probably going to have an excursion once every 2 or 3 days, depending on how busy that you want to be. And this is the beauty of Bali, particularly Sanur here on the East Coast, is that first of all, a couple of things you need to know about Bali. Transportation is very reasonable. The traffic is heavy. I'll admit that. Bali is even here in the sort of shoulder season it's a busy place, but taxis are very inexpensive. You can take a taxi all the way over to Seminyak, which is about an hour drive on the opposite side, on the southwest side of the island, and it'll cost you, maybe around 10-15 bucks. Same thing, you can go down to Kuta. So you can, once you've spent a couple of days here, you'll get the feel and feel comfortable and confident to go out and sort of venture around on your own. So, you might spend a day by the pool, you might go for a walk down the boardwalk and have lunch at one of the places along the beach. You might go for a massage or, and go for a mani and pedi at one of the many places in the area. There's lots of great shopping around here, whether it's for clothes or whether it's for, knickknacks and housewares. And our excursions that I'm about to explain are very varied in nature. So it takes in a little bit of the cultural aspect of Bali, but also the scenic beauty that the island has to offer. So I'll give you some insight into a few of the things that you could do while you're here. For example, Mount Batur, which is the second highest mountain volcano on the island. It's located about 90 minutes north of here. And we have a wonderful trip to the Tirta Empul Temple. In fact, I was there yesterday. And, you get to see a lot of Bali, and the traditions here are around water, and water is used for purification in the Hindu tradition. So we get to go to the Tirta Empul Temple and see how the pilgrims and the locals purify themselves in the water, and see these amazing temples. And the temples are everywhere, but they have some particularly amazing ones, like here overlooking Lake Batur and this volcano that we can see. Bali is obviously also synonymous with its rice terraces, and the one at Jatului is one of the most photographed ones, as you can see from this photograph. And you see rice paddies and terraces everywhere when you're driving around in Bali. I mean, obviously out of the very built up areas. And that's kind of what makes the overall vibe of the place feel so Balinese, is just seeing this landscape of rice terraces. Up on the slopes of Mount Agung, the highest volcano on the island, you have the so-called Besaki temple, or the Mother Temple, which is one of the largest, or the largest temple in Bali, that has got some 80 different shrines surrounding it, the gardens, the shrines. It's absolutely magical. And our guides are doing really an amazing job of explaining about the significance of these, in not just in terms of history, but also in the day-to-day practice of the Indonesians, and all of the traditions and the rites and practices that they go through on a day-to-day basis. And again, that's what makes it very, very interesting. For those who are a little more active, we also have the ability to actually go up on some of these volcanoes. We have the Mount Batur hike that takes you up basically to the summit. You have to leave in the middle of the night, get up in the wee hours of the morning, and you're brought up there by jeep partway up the mountain. Then you hike up to see the sunrise, when you have the sun rising in the east to the background over the ocean, with Lake Batur down below, as you can see here. I tell you, it is a absolutely incredible moment. We also spend some time in Ubud, and we offer Ubud. And of course, as I say, you can hop in a taxi and get up there for about 10 bucks. It's very, very reasonable. Or you can join us on an e-bike cycling tour. particularly when you get away from the more densely populated part of the island in around Denpasar. It's really quite nice to go by e-bike and tour around. And Ubud, of course, is known for the Royal Palace and many other temples that surround it. This is where people come to really get a deep insight into what Balinese culture, the Hindu religion, which of course underpins society here, is all about. And again, we do that by e-bike. Balinese villages are everywhere, but actually going in and understanding how these villages are comprised. And, just like we're a community at Wheel and Anchor and we all live in communities back at home, but, the importance of community in Balinese culture and society is really, really interesting when you have it explained, the role that the different people play, how they all interact with one another, and the cohesiveness is really, really remarkable. So we learn a little bit about that. Of course, the food goes without saying. We don't see a lot of Indonesian food at home. If you're familiar with any of the dishes, particularly their satays with their peanut sauce and their rendangs and so many delicious things. And the one thing that's refreshing as well about coming here for a prolonged period of time is that if you eat local, it's very, very inexpensive. So of course you can get anything under the sun here. I've seen about every restaurant, French, Italian, Chinese, Korean, Indian, it's all here. But the local Indonesian food, as far as I'm concerned, is so delicious and reasonably priced. And you can go out for it's a lot of fun to go out to a night market and experience what how the local Indonesians actually eat on a day-to-day basis. On the other end of the spectrum, of course, just down the beach here, there is another 5-star hotel where they put on a super sumptuous Sunday brunch. You can get products from all over the world. It is absolutely over the top. Typically a boozy brunch as well, but this is one of the little excursions that we offer and is often fun. We try to encourage the whole group to come along and join us for brunch because that's a great time to, hang out with friends on the beach, having some delicious, not just local, but international food. On the other side of the island, I mentioned before, we've got Seminyak, Kuta. These are the most known touristic areas of the island that have a tremendous number of shops and restaurants and all the rest of it. And over on that side of the island is also one of the island's most celebrated temples called Tanah Lot. You see it pictured here. It looks like it's sort of in the middle of the sea. It is attached to the mainland, but this is the Temple of Romance. So a lot of people come here, not just tourists to admire its very unique setting, but also the locals who come here to, let's say, get inspired or get a blessing, particularly if they're, looking to, to have children or something like that. So Tanah Lot is a very, very special place, a must-see temple in Bali. One of our longer excursions, we do a day trip over to Nusa Penida, as I mentioned on the map. This is the sister island of Bali with its spectacular white cliffs that you see here and its coves with the turquoise water. It's absolutely magical. So we'll do a wonderful boat trip over to Nusa Penida for the day. Actually, the group just came back a little bit earlier this evening from Uluwatu, which is yet another temple over on the island with the steep cliffs. And here we actually witness a very interesting local dance. And, I'm not a big fan necessarily of all the folklore dances. Those of us that are travelers, we've seen tons of them, but this was very interesting to see all of, the men from one of the local tribes getting together and chanting. And it's just like out of a National Geographic documentary, a really, really moving experience that we get to have here at Uluwatu. And of course, once you've tasted the food for a while, you'll probably want to learn how to cook some of the dishes. Again, I think Balinese food rivals that of Thai food, even though it's not as well known on the international scene. But it really is quite easy to make. There's some delicious flavors here, and a cooking class is a great way to experience some of that. As I mentioned, Bali is, a small island, but actually quite big. I mean, if you want to drive all the way to the other side, you're talking about at least a 6-hour journey. And so we offer a couple of overnight excursions, which are, again, something that's unique to our LiveAway programs. We can drive up to the north coast of the island. And once you get away from, again, this southeast corner, the whole vibe of it changes a lot, because there's vast amounts of beautiful nature, like you can see here. There's some national parks with a whole variety of wildlife, so you get a very different, you get really the feeling of being in remote parts of Indonesia in general. So a 2-day trip up there enables us to get away a little bit from the hustle bustle and out into the beautiful nature that Bali has to offer. And of course, as I mentioned as well at the outset, not far away is Komodo Island, home to the world famous and the endemic Komodo dragons, which are one of the largest reptiles on the planet. I mean, these creatures are absolutely giant. They're obviously protected by UNESCO because their numbers have been dwindling, and so this is kind of like going to see the gorillas in Africa or the boobies in the Galapagos. To see the Komodo dragons is just something that you really, really ought to do if you're in this part of the world. So we have a 2-night trip where we fly over, go to a resort, and spend a day on Komodo Island visiting the home of these rather amazing creatures. So there's that, and there's lots more, as I say, offer here on Bali. So I'll touch on a few of the logistics. Of course, we're at the same time as releasing this webinar, we are also going to be releasing our program itinerary, which is going to have all the details for you about the different programs that we have on offer, the excursions here in Bali. Just to give you the overview, as I mentioned, we're going to be offering Bali on both a 14-night and a full month or a 28-night basis in mid-February to late February. So you can see here the price points: Canadian dollars, which is all of your accommodations; an activity credit, which is either $700 or $1,000, depending on if you're staying 14 or 28 nights. And you've got all these different categories of accommodations that are available here. So obviously included. Oh, and before I forget, what we're able to do, because I've been here also negotiating with the hotel to get us as the best deal possible. So if you sign up for our 2024 Bali LiveAway program by April 15th, which is when things really start to get busy in terms of their bookings for next year, then you get to have $500 per person if you reserve your spot before April the 15th. So I just wanted to mention that because we are not advertising it in the itinerary. So basically, if you're a member, you participate in the webinar, then you are entitled to that early bird special booking before the 15th of April. All of the details, of course, are in the program itinerary. So do read that. In our hotel, of course, we have the accommodation in these lovely rooms. I must say I was very pleasantly surprised arriving here. I think this hotel is amazing. We have breakfast every day. We have an activity credit that you can spend on all the different excursions. And here in Bali, things are quite reasonable. So actually your activity credit goes a long way. And if you spend $700, you can probably have something to do literally every other day on the programs. And then so many other things that you can do while you're here. We provide a SIM card, and obviously this program, as with all of our LiveAways, fully hosted. So one of my team is here to help you and point you in the right direction. But people get comfortable really here. Bali is a very easy place to be and to get around. And so the only thing, of course, not in our programs, as many of you will know, the airfare, which we're happy to facilitate for you, as well as insurance, which is kind of a must in this day and age. Talking about flights, I think depending on when you book, this is the price range. We do have a pre-trip available as well in Singapore. So for those of you who are looking to come in a couple of nights early, we came through Singapore. For those of us that came from Thailand and spent a couple of nights, it's an amazing city to visit as well. So you can do that. But this gives you a sense of what you can expect to spend. And actually, you know what? These numbers are backwards here because the prices from Eastern Canada are a little bit less than those from Western Canada, because those of you who are on the West Coast are closer here. So in any event, now is the time to ask any questions that you may have. And Barb is going to help me by facilitating any of those. But of course, if you don't get if you don't want to ask a question today, or if you think of it 5 minutes after the webinar is over, please do drop a note to either Paula or Barb, and they will be more than happy to answer all of your questions. And now I'll take some of them now, but I'm gonna stop myself and address the question of weather, which I said I was going to do earlier. Barb, what is the weather like at this time of the year? Well, this is technically classified as the rainy season. And so, because actually the high season in Bali is June through September. That's when it's the dry season, when it rains the least. And it's also winter in Australia. So the place is full of visitors from Australia, New Zealand, and other parts of the Southern Hemisphere. But what does it mean to be here in the rainy season? Well, I think this is the perfect time of the year because, today was a great example. We actually had a totally sunny day today. It didn't rain at all. But we did have rain the last couple of days, but it rains for like an hour or two, either in the morning, sort of 9 to 11, or sometimes in the afternoon for a bit. But otherwise, the weather is really quite comfortable because when it rains, it's not as hot. And today was one of those sunny days when I walked down the street, I was dripping in sweat because it was such a beautiful day, and it was definitely warm. So you get a mix. You get a mix in the rainy season. You get definitely some rain, but it's kind of part and parcel because it's so lush and green here that so far the little bit of rain that we have hasn't really bothered anybody. So anyway, I wanted to address that question about weather. Barb, what other questions have we got?
Yeah, we've got a few. Is English widely spoken there, or how's the language?
Yes. Yeah, actually, that's a great question. English is very widely spoken here. And so this is the one thing you notice, quite a difference for those that had joined us on our liveaway in Thailand, where the locals in Thailand still struggle a little bit with the English language. But here, you hardly meet anybody who doesn't speak English. It is taught in schools. And so it's really quite widely spoken and understood. So English is very easy to use here.
Okay, great. Ellen's asking if you'd see Komodo dragons on the trip. Is there much?
If you do the Komodo Island excursion, you will see Komodo dragons. They are only on Komodo Islands or in the Komodo Islands National Park. So you're not going to see any in Bali. You have to go to Komodo to see. That's the only place in the world where Komodo dragons actually live, is on Flores, on the couple of islands in the Komodo Islands National Park.
Okay. And then Ingrid's asking for the overnight trips. Are they included in the base price, or is there extra fees for accommodation and flights?
Yeah, so the overnight trips are treated like any of our excursions, in that we give you a list of all the potential excursions that you can do, so that most of them are, of course, half day or day trips. But then the overnight excursions are quoted as well based on accommodation. In the case of Komodo, the flights as well. So we give you a mini excursion package, which is, either one night for the North Bali excursion or 2 nights if you're going over to Komodo Island. And it includes whatever it includes as detailed on that. And so those are in the activity credit. So you can, let me put it this way, you can use your activity credit to pay for the overnight trips as well. So you can put together whatever combination that you like. And some people come to really just hang out and chill and do things on their own. And if you don't spend the activity credit, then we refund you back the difference after the end of the trip. And otherwise, I would say most of our members use all of their activity credit and then some, and then we just charge you the difference.
Okay. And then Rita's asking what money is used, so the currency.
The currency here is the Indonesian rupiah, so not the rupee like in India, but the rupiah. It's about 11. It's a funny exchange rate because you got big banknotes here. It's 11,000 Indonesian rupiah to the Canadian dollar. But same thing like everywhere now, you can use a credit card just about anywhere. You can tap it. Although a lot of our members have taken our advice and used the Wise card, so you can go to an ATM and take it out in cash, because of course, for local markets and so on, they definitely do appreciate getting cash as opposed to they won't take credit cards. But pretty much any restaurants, cafes, bars around here, they're all accepting credit cards. So it really is easy with the currency.
Okay. There is a question about temperature. I know you touched on weather, but asking for the average temperature and if it
Yeah,
becomes humid.
the average temperature is warm. I mean, we are in the tropical belt. We are not far from the equator. So the temperatures here average sort of between 28 to maybe 32 degrees. And yes, it's humid. No question about it. It is absolutely humid. So it does take a little bit of getting used to after the first couple of days, but I'll tell you, it's better than being back home in Canada.
Okay, one other question just came in regards to the deposit and final payment, just if it's paid up front, et cetera. If you want to touch on that.
No, so on all of our trips, you pay, and it's all detailed in the program itinerary. So you pay a deposit, which is, if you have to then cancel for, the first few months, is a portion of that is refundable. And then, depending on what the arrangement is, what our obligations are as the tour provider to, the hotels and the various tour suppliers, the cancellation penalties and so on will vary. But typically you pay a deposit up front. It's usually, I think it's $1,500 for Bali. And then the balance is due roughly 90 days, about 3 months ahead of the trip. So that's how it all works.
Okay. And another popular question we get is, how large is the group?
So the group size could vary. It could be anywhere between sort of 10 and 30 people. This year we have about 27 here. But I think the important thing, and that's a very good question, because how we work here at Wheel and Anchor is, particularly on our LiveAways, the overall size of the group, like in Thailand, it was 60 people. And so some people think, oh my God, 60 people. But what we do on all of our excursions is that we are doing excursions on an individual van basis. So our excursions are mostly sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 people. In some cases, maybe 12. If there's a boat involved, it might be 12 or 14. So the experience you have on our excursions is small group. The overall group that's here, that, most days you may see some, you may see none, is, as I say, could be 20, 30 people, might be more, might be less. It all depends.
Okay. And if we have time for, okay, so we just touched on that. So in regards to the currency, you talked about the Wise card. So we do have a question about, what is the Wise card?
Yeah, okay, so I'll touch on it briefly. The details are in all of our details. The Wise card is a prepaid multi-currency debit card. It's basically a Visa card that you can very easily charge up by just transferring money from your bank, either by Interac e-transfer, or there's various ways to load up the card, and then you use it like a Visa card. But the advantage to it is that the exchange rates to other currencies are way better than you will get from any bank in Canada or anywhere. They have a threshold of money that you can withdraw from the ATM without bank charges, which is, of course, most Canadian banks are charging you handsomely to withdraw money overseas. And you can instantaneously interchange between currencies. So for travelers, and I'm a traveler, when I discovered this Wise card a couple of years ago, I'll tell you, I don't use anything but. It is so handy and convenient. You'll find all the details in our additional information documents about the Wise card and how it works.
Okay. Last question is, where do you first meet up? for the trip?
You first meet up. So on all of our programs, you can fly there on your own routing. So we don't prescribe to members that you have to fly with a group from Toronto or something like that. I don't believe in that, because travelers generally like to get there their own way on their own speed and their own preferred airline. So we meet you, one of our representatives meets you at the airport of arrival. So in this case at Bali Denpasar Airport, and you're picked up and brought to the hotel. So the group meets on the first day at the hotel in Bali. And that's the way to do it. So it gives you a lot more flexibility to arrive when you want.
Okay, perfect. Those are the questions that came in. So if people have other ones, they can email or call us. But yeah, those are the ones that came in.
Yeah, please do. We welcome all questions. Obviously, we want to make sure that you understand what we're all about and how this works, particularly if you're new to us and you haven't participated in one of our LiveAway programs before. Do look through all the information that's in the program itinerary. This webinar, of course, will be recorded or is recorded and will be made available to replay. So you can always come back and listen to what I've said, watch my pretty face, and hear it all again. But again, of course, Barb, you're there to answer any questions, as well as Paula, about what we're all about. And yeah, thank you for your time. I do hope you'll consider joining us next winter in Bali. This is a way better place to be, I think, than back home during the dreary winter months. And as I say, so far, we're having a marvelous time here. And I hope to see you all here next year. All right. Have yourselves a wonderful day. And thanks for joining our webinar on our Bali LiveAway 2024.